Hello, friend. Thank you for being here. Today, we're about to explore a mystery that most people overlook. But once you hear it, you may never forget it. Opening. A war over a body. Have you ever heard of a war over a body? Not a political body, not a symbolic one, but the actual lifeless body of a man. That man was Moses. He was the one who stood before Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." The one who split the sea, climbed Mount Sinai, held the tablets of fire in trembling hands. The one who walked with God face to face, yet died alone on a mountain. And when he died, something happened that very few talk about. A scene not recorded in Exodus or Numbers or Deuteronomy, but hidden in a single verse deep in the New Testament. In the book of Jude, verse 9, we find a strange and staggering truth. But Michael the archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a railing judgment, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." Let that settle in for a moment. An angel, a devil, and a dead man's body caught in the middle. This isn't fiction. This isn't metaphor. This is scripture. And it raises a chilling question. Why did Satan want Moses' body so badly? What could the devil possibly gain from the corpse of a servant of God? What did he hope to do with it? Hide it, display it, twist it into some dark version of glory. And what does this tell us? Not just about Moses, but about spiritual warfare, deception, legacy, and the terrifying lengths to which Satan will go to sabotage God's people. This story is not just about a burial. It's about the battle behind the veil. And if we dare to look closely, we might discover that it's not just about Moses either. It's about you and what the enemy wants to steal, even after you're gone. Part 1. The final mistake of Moses. Moses was no ordinary man. He had stood in the courts of Pharaoh, defied a king, and led millions through the wilderness. He heard God's voice from a burning bush. He split the Red Sea with a staff. He met with God on the mountain, while thunder shook the earth below. But near the end of his journey, at the very edge of the Promised Land, he made a mistake, and it cost him more than we can imagine. God had given him a simple instruction: speak to the rock, and water would flow. That's it. No staff, no drama, just speak. But the people were angry. They were complaining again. Thirsty, bitter, ungrateful. And Moses, worn down by years of burden, snapped. He stood before them and said, "Must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then he struck it, not once, but twice. And water did come out. But something far more serious had just happened. Moses, God's chosen servant, had blurred the line between God's power and his own. He said, "we," as if he and God were partners. As if it was his strength that summoned miracles. And worse, he disobeyed the command to speak. He struck the rock, angrily, publicly, violently. That moment wasn't just disobedience, it was misrepresentation. To the people watching, it looked like God was angry, but God wasn't. Moses was. Asterisk, asterisk. And so God responded, not with rage, but with sorrow. Greater than, because you did not trust me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites. You will not bring this assembly into the land I give them. Numbers chapter 20, verse 12. Imagine that, after decades of obedience, after enduring betrayal, hunger, rebellion, and grief, after climbing mountains and kneeling in tents of meeting, he would die just short of the finish line. We often talk about Moses' victories, but this story, this final mistake, is part of his legacy too. Because even the greatest leaders can fall in a single moment of pride. Part 2. A burial performed by God. Imagine this. A man dies on a mountain, and no one is allowed to follow. No family, no priests. No nation gathered to mourn. Just God and Moses. That's exactly what happened. Deuteronomy chapter 34 tells us. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab according to the word of the Lord, and he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab opposite Beth Peor. But no man knows his burial place to this day. Let that sink in. God himself buried Moses. Asterisk. It's the only time in Scripture where the Creator of heaven and earth takes part in a burial. No angels, no human hands, just the breath that formed stars, gently laying to rest the body of his servant. Why? Why would God take such a personal role in the death of Moses? This wasn't just a quiet ending. It was a sacred, divine act. A burial that whispered love, honor, and protection. Moses had failed. Yes. He struck the rock. He spoke in anger. He misrepresented God before the people. And yet, God didn't abandon him. He didn't erase Moses' name. He didn't leave his body exposed to the desert wind. Instead, he buried him with his own hands in a secret place where no one would ever find him. That's not just compassion, that's covenant love. We get covenant love. Asterisk. Some say a man is measured by how he lives, but maybe he's also measured by how God receives him when it's over. Moses died without applause. No farewell speech. No public legacy ceremony. Just dust and God. But maybe that's the most profound ending of all, because when God buries a man, he is saying, I was there when no one else was. I saw everything, and I still call you mine. This wasn't just the end of a journey. It was the sealing of a covenant, a quiet act of heaven, far from the eyes of men. And still, what happened next shows us, even in death, Moses' body was not left alone, because in the shadows, another presence stirred, one who had watched from a distance, and now came to take what did not belong to him. Part 3. The Celestial Clash. Michael versus Satan. We often think of battles as things that happen on earth, between armies, between men. But some battles take place beyond the veil, and one of them, one of the most mysterious ever recorded, was fought not over a throne or a nation, but over a body, Moses' body. Jude, verse 9, gives us a glimpse. Greater than but Michael the archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a railing judgment, but said, The Lord rebuke you. One verse, no more. No long account, no vivid description, just a quiet line, tucked into a small book near the end of the Bible. But behind that line is a war. Michael, an archangel, a warrior of light, God's chosen defender, Satan, the accuser, the serpent, once a prince among angels, now the enemy of heaven, and between them, the lifeless body of Moses. Why? Why would Satan, the prince of darkness, care so much about a dead man? We don't know all the details, but we do know this. It was serious. It was not symbolic. It was not a metaphor. It was a real confrontation between powers and principalities. And yet, what stands out most isn't the clash, but the restraint. Michael didn't yell, he didn't curse, he didn't even confront Satan in his own name. He said simply, "The Lord rebuke you." That's all. Why? Because even the strongest angel knows. Victory doesn't come from strength alone. It comes from surrender to divine authority. Michael didn't rely on rank. He relied on the righteousness of God. And in doing so, he showed us something profound. Spiritual warfare is not won by volume. It's won by obedience. This wasn't just a power struggle. It was a testimony that even in death, the people of God are fiercely protected. And the enemy knows it. Because Moses may have fallen, but his legacy was still a threat. And Satan wanted to end it permanently. Part 4. Satan's real motives. 4 dimensions of darkness. Why did Satan want the body of Moses? Think about that. Of all the things he could pursue, thrones, kingdoms, kings, he chose the decaying flesh of a man long gone. Why? There was no power in the corpse itself, but there was power in what that body represented. Legacy, redemption, God's faithfulness to the end. And Satan wanted to corrupt it. Let's walk through 4 possible reasons. Not wild guesses, but warnings. Because the same tactics are still being used today. Dash, 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 dot, dot. First, to block a future resurrection. We know from Scripture that Moses later appears on the Mount of Transfiguration in Matthew chapter 17. He stands beside Elijah, alive, glorified, speaking with Jesus. Could it be that Satan wanted to prevent that moment? He may have thought, if I take the body, I might interrupt God's plan to raise him, because Satan fears resurrection. Not just the event, but what it means. He knows that resurrection is proof that death doesn't get the last word, and Satan needs death to feel final. He needs graves to stay sealed. He needs people to believe that what is broken will stay broken. But resurrection isn't just about bodies. It's about the one who holds the keys to death and life. Still, Satan tried because he hates restoration. He hates that God redeems what men throw away. So, even a corpse he tried to claim. Dash, 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 dot, dot. Second, to turn Moses into an idol. Remember the golden calf, the bronze serpent? Israel had a pattern, a tragic one, of turning sacred things into sacred objects. Into sacred objects. And objects become idols. Now imagine if they had Moses' body, his bones, his robe, his staff. Wouldn't they have built a shrine, a tomb, a temple? What begins as honor quickly becomes obsession. And obsession always leads to idolatry. Satan knows that. He doesn't always destroy with fire. Sometimes he distracts with admiration, and he still does it today. Leaders become celebrities. Movements become monuments. Reverence becomes ritual. And before we know it, we've replaced the living God with the memory of a man. If Satan had Moses' body, he would have used it to fix Israel's eyes on the dead, so they would forget the one who was still alive. Third, to accuse and condemn. Revelation chapter 12 calls Satan the accuser of the brethren. He doesn't just tempt, he testifies against you. And Moses, despite his greatness, was not without failure. He murdered an Egyptian, He broke the tablets of the law. He struck the rock when he was told to speak. Satan would have dragged every one of those sins into the courtroom of heaven. "Look at him," he would say, "unworthy, disobedient, disgraced." And maybe he says the same to you. Maybe he whispers into your past and resurrects what God already buried. But what Satan forgets is that grace doesn't expire. Moses was covered by the mercy of the God who saw everything and still called him friend, still spoke with him face to face, still buried him with honor. Satan wanted to condemn, but God had already forgiven. And forgiveness, once given, isn't something hell can reverse. Fourth, to mock the plan of God. This was the most insidious motive of all. Satan didn't just hate Moses, he hated the narrative. He wanted to twist the plot, to take God's chosen leader and turn him into a trophy of defeat. He would have paraded the body before heaven and hell. "Look what I took from you. Look what you couldn't protect." But Satan always misunderstands something. God doesn't lose. Even in death, he wins. The mountain where Moses died became a mystery. The grave became a sealed chamber of purpose. And that body, hidden, guarded, became part of a story that would point forward to the one who would defeat death forever. What Satan tried to mock, God used to magnify. That's always how it ends. These four motives, they aren't ancient only, they're active. He still tries to steal your resurrection, still tempts you to worship people instead of God, still drags your past into your future, still tries to turn your pain into proof that God has failed you. But the same God who defended Moses will defend you, not because you are flawless, but because he is faithful. The enemy fought hard for Moses' body, but he never got it. And he won't get yours either, if you belong to the one who overcame the grave. Part 5. The God who guards legacy. Most people fear death, but there's something even more terrifying: being forgotten, living a life of obedience, sacrifice, and faith, only to be erased, overlooked, twisted. That's what Satan wanted to do with the story of Moses, to stain his memory, to ruin his legacy. But God said no, because God is not just the author of your story. He is the protector of your name. The enemy fought for the body of Moses, but God hid it, not to shame him, but to shield him. Because sometimes the holiest thing God can do is keep you hidden. The mission of Moses was complete. His race was finished. His staff laid down. His voice silenced. But his influence, his legacy, was not over. And God knew the dangers that legacy would face: idolatry, misuse, misrepresentation. So he buried the body, but preserved the purpose. Moses didn't need a monument. He didn't need a tomb lined with gold. He didn't need people marching to a grave with flowers, because God himself was the guardian of that story. And he still is. This speaks to something deeper. Sometimes we think our legacy depends on what people see, on what we leave behind, on whether our names are remembered on earth. But the legacy of Moses wasn't buried with him. It was written into eternity. It showed up again hundreds of years later on the Mount of Transfiguration, where Moses stood in glory beside Elijah, speaking with Jesus himself. That is legacy, not carved in stone, but alive in the presence of the Son of God. And here's the greater truth: If God protected the body of Moses, how much more will He protect your purpose? If He fought off the devil for a lifeless frame, how much more will He defend the living breath He has placed inside you? Because your story, just like the story of Moses, is sacred. It may be misunderstood, it may be criticized, it may even be attacked, but God knows how to preserve what belongs to Him. Not just your soul, not just your salvation, but your legacy, the part of your life that continues to speak long after you are gone. And the enemy can fight for it. But he will not have the final word. God will. He always has. Part 6. The lesson buried with Moses. We followed a strange and sacred story. A man who died on a mountain, a God who buried him, an angel who stood guard, and a devil who came to steal what was left. But this was never just about Moses. This was always about something more. Look closer. Why would God go to such lengths? To hide a grave? Why would He personally defend a body no longer breathing? Because in that burial, He was burying more than just flesh. He was burying a temptation, a distraction, a future idol. And He was teaching a lesson, one that still speaks across generations. Worship belongs to God alone, not to prophets, not to pastors, not to people. No matter how anointed they are, no matter how powerful their story is, the Israelites had a pattern. Every time God moved, they built an idol out of what He used. They melted their gold into a calf. They lifted a bronze serpent. They praised the vessel and forgot the voice behind it. So God did something radical. He took the vessel and buried it in secret, because the truth is, we're not meant to cling to the messenger. We're meant to follow the message. And there's more. Moses was a servant of God, but he was still human. He failed. He doubted. He disobeyed. And Satan wanted to use that to parade his mistakes, to remind heaven of his flaws, to stain the name of one who had walked with God. But God didn't allow it. Why? Because forgiveness is real. Because grace has memory loss. Because when God forgives, He doesn't just cover sin. He silences the accuser. So what does this mean for you? It means that no matter your past, no matter your regrets, no matter what the enemy tries to drag into your present, God knows how to bury it. He knows how to seal what should not be resurrected. He knows how to defend what the enemy wants to steal. And He knows how to carry your story through the fire, through the silence, through the judgment of others, and still bring it to glory. So let this story of a hidden grave and a cosmic battle remind you, you don't need to be perfect to be protected. You don't need a monument to have meaning. You don't need to fear what the enemy tries to resurrect against you. Because if you belong to God, your story, your legacy, your soul is not up for negotiation. It is guarded. It is covered. It is buried in grace. Part 7. From Moses to you. You were not there when Moses died. You did not stand on that mountain. You did not see the angels descend. You did not watch the devil try to steal what did not belong to him. But this story was never just about him. It has always been about you, because just like Moses, you have walked through deserts. You have faced trials, burdens, regrets. You have carried weight no one sees. And maybe the enemy has whispered to you too, God will not use you. You have gone too far. You will be forgotten. But the story of the body of Moses says otherwise. It tells us that God does not forget his servants, that he buries what is meant to die and resurrects what is meant to live, that he silences the accuser, that he defends the weak, that he guards your purpose, even after you believe your time is done. So what is your response? Will you keep carrying your shame, your secrets, your fear of being forgotten? Or will you surrender it to the one who buries with honor and raises with power? If you feel like your story is over, it is not. If you have been afraid that your past disqualifies you, it does not. If you have been wondering whether God still sees you, he does. God buried Moses in secret, but he raised him in glory, and he will do the same with you. Before you go, do not leave this moment behind. Let this story press deeper into your soul. Let it shift something in your spirit. And if this message spoke to you, if it awakened something you did not even know you needed, then subscribe, join us, and do not walk this journey alone. We are building something sacred here, a space where stories like this lead us closer to the heart of God. And if you want to go deeper, we have prepared a free resource for you. It is called The Hidden Fight: What Moses Teaches Us About Spiritual Warfare. You can download it now, completely free, in the description below. Because your story matters, your legacy matters, and you are not alone in the battle. One last thing: if the enemy has been fighting hard for your peace, your calling, your future, it is because he knows something you might have forgotten. You are still dangerous, not because of who you are, but because of who walks with you. And no grave, no voice of accusation, no shadow from your past can silence the one God has chosen. The enemy may come for your body, he may come for your name, but he will never win if you belong to the God who buried Moses and stood guard.